Hello everyone. This video is going to be about a very short essay by Hermann Hesse. After I uploaded the previous video, the third Q&A video, one of the questions stayed with me, the question about Hermann Hesse. And for some reason I started looking for stuff by him, things that I have not read so far. And I was especially looking for any essay collections. And the one, I think the main one in English, is a collection titled My Belief, Essays on Life and Art. And this collection was edited by Theodore Ziolkowski, published in 1974, and translated by Lindley and Mannheim. Unfortunately, this book is unavailable from the outlets that I usually buy books from, and it is not available on Kindle as an ebook. I think it is out of print. But I found something. I found a much smaller book. It is almost not a book. I mean, not almost. It is not a book. It is something on Kindle, a booklet, pamphlet, which contains 3 of that collection of essays, 3 items. And these 3 items are, the first one is on language, the second one is on reading books, and the third one is on poems. The third one is called On Poems. And so I was, after reading the first one of those, the first essay, which is only 6 pages long, but it is so compelling that I decided to share some of the material in that first essay with you. What I will share with you now is probably about 1/3 of that first essay, so I would encourage you to check out this collection. It's only $2, $2 on Amazon. One of the 2 things that I want to talk about is the very first idea that he puts forth in the essay. And I'm going to begin reading the first sentence, the first 2 sentences from the essay. He writes, "Language is a mangle and an earthly debris that the poet, more heavily than all others, leans on. Rightly at times, he can hate, accuse, and curse it, or rather himself, that he is born to work with this wretched tool." So his way into discussion of language is the thing that the poet more than anybody else relies on. Is language, you can say, most explicitly is the tool of poets and poetry. Skipping a little bit ahead, now he's talking about how the poet is different from other artists like a painter and a musician, in that a poet doesn't have his or her own unique medium for his art or her art. A musician or a painter, they work with media, each works with a medium that is unique, that creates a kind of perceptual qualities that others don't have access to. They don't have the ability to, without training, to create those forms of sensation. But a poet works with something that everybody has access to. So let's read from the second paragraph. "Deeply and daily, he envies the musician for one thing especially, that the musician has his language for himself alone, only for making music. But for his activity, the poet must use the same language in which you hold school and do business, in which you telegraph and hold court. How poor he is, that for his art he owns no private organ, no personal abode, no private garden, no personal window to look out onto the moon. All in all, he must partake in everyday life." So that's the first thing, that's the first idea I wanted to get out of this essay and share with you as a kind of incentive to go and read the entire context. This is the idea that a poet is working with something that everybody has access to. Everybody is already using the medium which a poet is kind of trying to make strange. It's trying to bring newness to this medium. And this gives one explanation for why poetry for most of us is a little bit strange and seems unnecessary, seems a little bit annoying, irritating, because we look at the words and we think that I'm supposed to understand the meaning of these words. Why is this person arranging the words in this way? Why am I supposed to read this piece of writing slowly, and why am I not getting it? And in fact, Hesse writes about the poet's attitude. One of the things that a poet has as part of his or her attitude is a very low expectation with respect to being understood. Okay, let's move to the next idea. In this next idea is about the comparison between the attitude of poetry, the attitude of a poet, and what, according to Hesse, is the opposite of the attitude of a poet. And Hesse calls that the attitude of the burgher. Now, this word is spelled B-U-R-G-H-E-R. It's a relatively archaic word, which means someone who lives in a city, an urbanite bourgeoisie. What they care about above everything is efficiency and profit. So when the burgher learns a language, when the burgher learns a craft, let's say the language of a subculture or the language of an art like the music, the terminologies, nomenclature. Once the burgher learns a language, they expect from that language maximum applicability and maximum efficiency. They want to get a lot out of it. When they learn a theory, for example, they want that theory to be a theory of almost everything. That's why I'm so skeptical of people, especially people on social media, who are seekers of big theories of everything, which indicates a kind of attitude that is after maximum efficiency and maximum applicability. In contrast to that attitude of the burgher, a poet works hard with language, tries very hard to create something new, while at the same time understanding that in advance, anticipating that most of what is done, most of what he or she is doing is not going to get through because of the difficulty of the medium and because of the novelty of what he's doing or she is doing. Another attribute of the burgher is his or her conservativeness, the being irritated and being annoyed by avant-garde, by whatever is new. So the burgher gets irritated, annoyed, angry when he confronts the innovativeness, the innovations, linguistic innovations of a poet, because the burgher sees that as unnecessary and hard work and inefficient. And then it's very beautiful. Hesse says that when the burgher gets angry, he expresses that anger, he expresses that wrath in platitude. So when a conservative, in that sense, when a conservative anti-art, anti-avant-garde person gets angry and annoyed, that anger comes out in cliché, in the form of things that are repetitions of things that have been said in the past. And Hesse here says that even in his anger, he fails to free himself. Now let's go with that in mind. Let's read a little bit from the essay, a couple of passages. Keep in mind that he's contrasting the burgher with the artist. Quote, in contrast, the artist who has no less to complain about the burgher than the burgher about him. The artist makes an effort and searches and invents, and for his wrath, his scorn, his embitterment, he learns a new language. He feels that cursing doesn't help and sees that it ends unjustly. Only in our time, he has no other ideal than his own, which he doesn't want, and wishes to be and to do and to speak out truly as himself, what nature has brewed and laid ready in him. And so for his rivalry against the burgher, he avoids the commonest personality, the commonest beauty, the commonest sayings. He speaks his wrath not in indulgence. He speaks his wrath not in indulgence, but rather sieves and builds and draws and kneads himself a correct expression, a new irony, a new caricature, a new way, so to transform unpleasantness and disgust into pleasantness and beauty. End quote. This gives us a clue about what it is about an artist that can take human suffering, human tragedy, and take that as raw material and create beauty and pleasantness with it. Let's read one last passage. This is about the self-censorship that the burgher applies to himself and how that is kind of dismantled in an artist and a poet. Quote, the burgher has set between himself and his soul a watchman, an awareness, a moral, a secure authority. And he doesn't acknowledge what comes directly out of this abyss of the soul without being earnestly stamped with this authority. But the artist directs his persistent mistrust not against the land of the soul, but rather against every border of authority, and goes secretly out and between here and there, between awareness and unawareness, as if he were at home in both. End quote. All right, very inspiring essay and very short, only 6 pages, as I said. And these are the 2 ideas that I think are worth thinking about. The first one was the status of language is something that the poet works with, but as something that doesn't really belong to the poet uniquely. And in fact, if anything, the poet is the one that is a stranger in the realm of language, the one who is at the margins of language, the creative margins of language. And the other point is about the contrast between the conservative, urbanite, bourgeois individual who is after efficiency and profit and maximum relevance theory of everything. If I learn a little bit, it has to be forever useful to me, and I'm going to resist from this point on any kind of novelty, any kind of innovation. I'm going to be skeptical about it, both from outside and from within. And how that attitude is, it's useful to think about the contrast between that attitude and the poetic and artistic attitude. Okay, that's good for now. If you have any thoughts on that or any questions or comments, I would love to hear them. Otherwise, until next time.